Welcome back, Michael at Wickerson Studios. I am continuing with the Algorithm for Dummies textbook, and I'm translating it into Grasshopper for Rhino. Well into Chapter 6. I have the whole chapter summarized within this one GhPython Algorithm for Dummies Chapter 5.6, and I'll make it the 6th chapter file on GitHub and Patreon. But if we take a look, I've gone so far, if we take a look at the last script, maybe not this one, but the last GhPython script that I've run, you'll see that one, oh, I didn't mean to take my Grasshopper window. Just want to slam off my GhPython node. You'll see that by the end of getting through this whole chapter, I've ended up having to import pretty much all of this. Numpy, Pandas, RPY, SciPy, Matplotlib, and Q. It's not used in every case. I do use some tree helpers to pull out some data. I don't think so much in this chapter because these data types are really not recognizable even when we start to deal with data trees in Grasshopper. But it's good to get a sense of this and find out what you're actually capable of doing. So what I'm going to do is take a look at the start. Obviously, you have to find out how to either watch my previous videos or find out online how you can import these libraries. I've got some special tips in here for Conda, if you're using Anaconda, and how to work within the Rhino remote library to get matplotlib libraries in Python up and running. But you want to be able to run this so this works for you. And of course, you have to know where you're putting everything in your Rhino remote. Once that's up and running, it's not really essential for number 6 to deal with this. But our first thing is looking at data. And there's a couple of warnings here of matching data types whenever dealing with data structures. And we go so far as in this first node, you'll see that we're working within a data frame. So I'm not outputting anything but the print function. This is kind of back on what I was doing last year. I'm not going to struggle through getting all of this data in different forms to come out in Grasshopper because I'm sure there's some plugins that specifically handle that. But if we take a look at what's going on here within this first one, we have our imports. We set up a data frame under right here, hard-coded in. And that's basically it. And we're just printing that data frame. And we're using things like drop duplicates to solve for it. And there's a little bit more information on this one website for possibly finding out how to translate data frames into lists to arrays and obviously into data trees as well. So you can start to output the data to use things within Grasshopper. I don't know how much I'm going to get into that. I think this really is about digging deeper into Python, what the possibilities of that are for you. And you'll probably end up leaving Grasshopper and going directly into Python if you were to continue with this kind of intensity. As we get through the structuring data section of this textbook, we're going to move into arranging and searching data in Chapter 7, and that'll be the next summary that I end up doing. So that said, dealing with missing data, I've gone in and I've written a script that's going to go in and uses a summary, finds the mean, but I've already running in the type problems with integer and floats, and then filling in not a number text to see if I can get this up and running. So basically, I'm not shifting back to my integer value, and it's the same type of problem with trying to do things within a series core. But either way, you are seeing the data as close as possible to what's within the textbook. You're still got to deal with the fact that users are going to misspell things, and are you really going to solve things and use Grasshopper for really calling and cleaning data as a data scientist? I don't know. Then we get into stacks and piling. I think it's compiling data, stacking and piling data order. But what I do is I run a little stack value here, which is ability to pop. And let's see what the command line is in here for a display stack. The algorithm, I just hard code in. Well, I just make a blank, and then I'm able to create my stack from display stack. And then my values are solved through a simple algorithm. And I'm pushing and popping with the stack, which is different from when you go in and you end up using queues. You're going to find to output this, to get a good sense of it, you're going to be putting and then emptying these stacks to see what you can get. And you're going to check if it's full. in a sense, and you're going to output data similar to what was in the textbook as well, and you get some Boolean outputs as well, and a little bit of string formatting. Then the final section is looking at dictionaries, if you're familiar with that, but a really nice way, and some of the tools that you can actually get into a dictionary, write, and then start using update and key functions to do some special things with that. So associating names with colors is all that's really happening there, and then updating those lists, which is nice because you're outputting lists and you can actually make sense of that. They seem to be arrays, but you can always move from arrays back into lists and lists back into trees. The next section was working with trees, which I find very interesting because in Grasshopper, everybody's pushing the no tree data more and more. And with the new Grasshopper 2, you're dealing with sites as well on top of that. But that's a nice understanding of how you would compile. And you can have, I'm just outputting a few samples of what leaves C, D, E, and F, and branches A, B would be in the root, just to see what they'd be. But as you get in and write that, you can see that there's a kind of cumbersome way of traversing a tree to output. You'll need traverse to actually output the tree to follow it back and chase it to its root. And then there's 3 types of balancing trees they talk about briefly, but they don't do anything with it. Balanced trees, unbalanced trees, heaps for making sorting faster. And they talk about a couple of algorithms that will be coming, Dijkstra and Huffman, later in chapter 8 and 9, maybe. And then the final section is representing relations as a graph, which is kind of like a data tree, but you're allowed to flow. You don't have to keep binary in any sorts. You can flow back and forth. And this is like a little path check of saying what is A connected to, what is B connected to, all the way through to F. And when you define that, what is the fastest path from moving from A? I think the sample here is from moving from B to E or from C to E. And then it'll follow that and chase it out, and you can see how to get to a data faster. So this is kind of like a data science chapter's dream in Grasshopper. A nice overview of structuring data and ways of thinking about things in Grasshopper. And of course, using the Grasshopper canvas as a means to understanding that. For you visual people out there, designers, artists, architects, this probably is a helpful little script to grab a hold of. Anyhow, Mike at Wickerson Studios, I'm going to go on to chapter 7, which is arranging and searching data. And we will just keep plugging through and making things work as long as we possibly can within Grasshopper. The applications of it, I'll leave up to you. I have some creative ideas with it, but right now, this is still a steep learning curve for me in coding, and still very interested in C# and Python as a means to use recursive methods and jazz up what Grasshopper is capable of doing, and hopefully doing plugins as we enter into Grasshopper 2 as well. Thanks for watching.